Hey friends, so welcome. Today we are gonna see. What if Naruto and Samui was disrespect to Ophis, Grayfia, Rias movie. In the city of Kuo, inside the Kuo Academy there is tension in the air, more so for the devil faction that is residing there. An argument is taking place between two families. Also a member of the peerages is screaming at the man for daring to touch his king and love interest or lust interest in the case of his personality. The two people in question is a large-breasted and beautiful red-haired girl named Rias Gremory and a blonde-haired man named Riser Phoenix. The two of them were having a tense staring contest and were arguing about the whole situation of the marriage arrangement. For the last time, Riser, I will not be marrying you. Dear Rias, you know our bloodlines are thinning out and thus a marriage between purebloods is needed to keep the bloodlines pure. He smirked arrogantly. After all, who is more worthy other than Riser? In the background, Riser's peerage was watching this going on, but one with blonde hair and drills while wearing a pink dress sighed. Seeing her brother act like this sickened her and made her seriously question why she ever became a member of his peerage in the first place. Maybe she would have been better off becoming her own king at this point, who knows? Dear Rias, you should know that I can't let any slight against me stand. As a member of the prominent Phoenix family, I'm supposed to be the face of the clan, meaning, if I have to burn the rest of your peerage to ashes, then I will drag you back to the underworld. They stood up from the couch and soon their auras were flaring in the room and both of their eyes turned red. While Ravel is about to intervene until Grayfia, a silver hair maid for the Gremory family and wife of the Lucifer, coughed to get their attention. Please both Rias-sama and Riser-sama show some restraint. Rias sat down on the opposite couch while Riser sat down as well. If the queen of Lucifer's peerage is telling me to sit down, then who am I to deny? Lucifer-sama's peerage is full of monsters. Ravel, finally having enough of her brother, stepped forward. Rias, if you want out of the marriage arrangement, there is someone you can talk to end it. Ravel, she glared at her brother. Shut the hell up, Riser, you have been embarrassing the family and I know if he heard what you have done he would break you for it. Don't bother denying it since mother should have done that sooner, Riser growled at her. As your king, I'm telling you to be quiet or there will be punishment for your actions. Ravel snorted. I'm so scared. What are you going to do? Fuck your queen to death? Please, I've seen you try that already and pass out after an hour. Rias, hearing something about earlier, she asked. Ravel-sama, what did you mean there is another way out of the arrangement? Ravel smiled and showed her a slip from the sleeve of her dress. It was a phoenix symbol, but it had some of its own design inside of the seal, with it showing a phoenix with a crown around it. This seal will take you to see my oldest brother, the supernova of the underworld and the strongest devil in existence. This caused the room to freeze in fear and shock, or in the case of Asia, and to say confusion. Oh no, Asia was twiddling her fingers. Excuse me, Ravel-sama, who is the supernova and why is he famous? She could tell from the reactions of the people in the room that this man was someone of great respect and fear among the people in the room, meaning he was someone that garners the most respect. If even the maid that was sent is shivering from the idea of this person. Not a surprise, as you are new to the devil faction. You see, the supernova of the underworld, or known as the Devil King, is my oldest sibling and the man that is heralded as the strongest devil ever born. His name is Naruto Phoenix and he is considered a devil among devils, feared for his power and skills. In the history books, he was known to be one of the main reasons the Devil Civil War ended on good terms for our faction. He is feared by the old faction due to his tremendous power and the charisma he possesses to rally people to his cause and promises of a changed underworld. I see, Asia could imagine someone that looked like Riser, but they were more mature and refined than him, and she blushed lightly about this. So how does one contact him? Do we just use that seal in your hands? Ravel nodded her head but hid the seal way in her sleeve. I have to organize some people first before we head to see my brother, as he never leaves his home, which is located deep in Phoenix territory. It is a location that no devil can reach by normal means, and given that Naruto Nai even has his own peerage, he is considered to have the strongest members in the underworld. Turning to Grayfia. You should know this, Grayfia-sama, you saw the Scarlet Despair become a high-class devil a couple of years ago. How about the Army Crusher, the Darkness, and many others becoming mid-class devils as well? Hearing some of the names caused Rias to freeze up. He had the Scarlet of Despair, the Army Crusher, the Darkness, and others in his peerage. No wonder people hold him in such high regard. Her brother always talked about how powerful he was and how even Zekrom Bey loved the man and considered him his own child, more that he treated him better than most could expect of one of the oldest devils in the underworld. At this same time, she heard rumors among the mass, or at least the ones she saw on a regular basis. The supernova used to be close to her family and many others in the ruling families, but something happened in the past to lead to him becoming distant to everyone in question, more specifically her and her brother and sister-in-law for some reason. So when can we go see him? Riser growled. We are not discussing this anymore. We are ending this farce of a standoff and getting married now. He is about to reach for Rias aggressively until Grayfia stopped him and froze his hand and snapped it off. Since we now know there is another option for Rias-sama other than a ratings game, I shall inform Lucifer-sama about this development. Rias growled, retreating through a teleportation circle and having most of his peerage doing the same. However, Ravel stayed behind looking at the woman in question. Look, tell whoever you want that might want to tag along for this trip and make sure they are ready by tomorrow morning, as this is going to be a one-way trip and there is no other way to the manor other than by his teleportation circle. Rias nodded her head and saw the youngest of the Phoenix family disappear, and she went off to tell her family about this development in Sona. Because she is a history buff, it would make sense if she would want to meet a true legend in the flesh and someone that is held as almost a god in their race. Next day. Standing in the middle of the Kuo Academy Orc room was a large group of people. First was Rias and her peerage, where a brown-haired boy was mumbling to himself and thinking about punishing that asshole of a man Supernova for allowing this farce to go on as long as it did. More in the sense Rias belonged to him and he would be damned to lose her just because this guy refused to undo the marriage arrangement. Next was a brown-hair woman with a mature figure and purple eyes named Venelana Gremory, talking to a blonde-hair woman with blue eyes and an equally amazing figure. This was the matriarch of the Phoenix family and the mother of Ruvel, Ravel, and Riser Phoenix and the supernova Naruto Phoenix. The women were talking about how handsome the boy must have become since his time away, and maybe if she has some grandbabies by now that she can spoil for her own self-interest. At this same time, Lords Gremory and Phoenix were having their own discussions about politics they might need to bring up with Lord Phoenix's son. But the most shocking thing is that Sirzich Lucifer, a male version of Rias, and his wife were standing there with a bubbly black hair lolicon with large breasts, wearing a magical girl outfit. This was Seraphol Leviathan, and someone that is considered one of the strongest women in the underworld, along with the most desired. She was harassing the hell out of her younger sister who stood taller than her and wearing glasses to complement her purple eyes and short hair. While not as busty as the other women in the group, she was mature looking in the way she carried herself. The biggest difference is that Sona Citri, Seraphol's sister, was watching her parents interact with her peerage and frown at the sight of Saji and his attitude. She would have to discipline him down the line and also make sure he is on his best behavior. While at the Supernova's home, she had all the books written about him and she honestly wanted to learn more about the man as a whole. But the most shocking guest in the room was a brown-haired man with a long beard and purple eyes who had an aura that radiated power. This man was Zekrom Baal, and he is considered the Devil King of the underworld, even though at times he would disagree with that title, given that he knows that the supernova is the rightful king. He was just the face while the nova was the muscle. After everyone had a chance to start talking a bit, Ravel showed up with Riser and she stood in the middle of the room. Alright everyone, I would like to go over the rules that Big Brother left behind for me on my 6th birthday when he gave me this seal. First rule. Keep your hands off the women in the house if you want to keep what is your manhood or your lives. Second rule. Do not steal anything if you want to keep breathing, and do not attempt to try anything in his home. Third rule. My brother would like to stress that how the people in his home are acting is not any concern of yours, and that if you dare to try and correct them, he'll correct you. Turning to the room and saw everyone agree to the rules and then activated the symbol covering the room in a bright flash. Upon opening their eyes they saw they were in some lush forest land, but standing before them is the largest house that most of the younger people have ever seen. It was a huge mansion that stood at the front with a large garden in the front yard, warming the heart of Lady Phoenix as her oldest had a habit of wanting more flora and nature around his home, and that is one of the reasons he moved up here. Zekrom smiles, knowing he comes here to relax in this wonderful garden and talk to Naruto with a game of chess. Entering the grounds, the group looked around at statues that covered the grounds of different figures that some of the nobles recognized as members of the Phoenix family of the past. One thing that stood out was the statue of the Lord and Lady and the inscription that was written at the bottom of the statue. Current heads of the Phoenix family, a loving and passionate mother, the one who gives it all for her children and tries her damnedest to instill the Phoenix pride, a father who, being the face of the family, knows he is just the image, while the matriarch is the true power of the family. Reading the inscription, Lord Gremory laughed at this. Seems your son has you pegged, Zekrom snorted. Like you and I can say we are any different at this point. The only man in the underworld that does not cower to the women around him is the supernova. Ah, that would be a great devil king compared to others. Who are you all? The group took their attention off the front of the Guardian to see a 10-year-old child standing in front of them. He had blonde hair that was laid down over his head, dark red eyes with slits, wearing a black formal suit with a white shirt and black tie. He had black slacks and black fancy shoes, but the thing that stood out is that he had an aura about himself. Something that made them ask. Who are you, child? He growled at the Phoenix matriarch. I ask you first, now answer or else, Issei snorted. Or else what, brat? Said Brat growled at him, and within seconds golden ripples formed behind him. Out of those ripples came different weapons of varying looks and sizes, causing the group to gulp. This fool, you will fall to the power of the gates of Babylon. Consider it an honor, fool, as few have lived to see the power of the king of heroes and the son of the supernova. Lady Phoenix froze. Wait, you said son of the supernova, does that mean you're? He looked at the woman closely, but then realized he had seen her face on the statue they are looking at, so withdrawing his gait he bowed his head. Yes, my name is Gil, I'm the oldest child of the supernova and one of his wives, I'm also a descendant of the Gilgamesh bloodline and considered his second coming by my mother. Indeed, son, but I wish you would not be so rude to our guests. Out of the house came a woman, and most of the men blushed or drooled at her figure. She had a white bikini top that covered her breasts, but she had armor on her left arm. The red marking tattoos on her body drew attention from the group, signaling that she was another descendant of the great hero Gilgamesh, as all descendants that unlock the bloodline have these marks on their body. Next, she had on a red cape coming down from the waist and touching the ground, or at least close to touching the ground. On her legs she is wearing a matching pair of gold armor that covered everything and had a front plate hanging down. The oddest piece is the horn that is coming out of her forehead to complement her blonde hair that is done in two pigtails. Her blue eyes were looking at all of them with boredom and mirth. Sorry, mother, he bowed to his mother and turned back and huffed at his guests. I guess I can allow you mongrels to worship the bloodline of the oldest hero and be grateful we allow you stand in our. He was scooped up and soon found himself smothered in the breasts of Lady Phoenix. How I am finally a grandmother. Look how adorable you are, I'm going to spoil you rotten, I swear I will. She started looking over the child and had no doubts that this was Naruto's child, given he had a similar facial structure as him. The woman giggled, giving her son a look that he froze at and just stayed in the embrace of the woman. Greetings everyone, the woman bowed, causing her breasts to jiggle from the gravity of the drop. The men purred, but the women quickly smacked them for this. I'm Angelica Ainsworth, descendant of Gilgamesh and my husband's third wife. The group is shocked, but Issei expressed the shock. Third wife? You mean this guy has more than wife here? She giggled. Indeed, my husband has 5 wives, many girlfriends, and also, she turned her head and saw a blonde-haired child younger than her son kick the door open. She had on a blue dress with armor covering parts of it. Her hair had a bun done up and holding some of the long hair from falling behind her. Dilnai, you were supposed to help me train today. Where are you? She looked up and saw all the people surrounding their home and feared the worst. She was about to summon her weapon, but Lady Citri looked at the child and asked. Is this another child of his? Another voice answered. Yes, but this child is mine. Out of the house came a woman wearing some kind of white bunny ears, long blonde hair with it done in a ponytail, and wearing a very tight-fitting top. It left a lot of cleavage to be seen, a white dress around her body with a blue fountain of energy to cover the front of the dress, while having on some kind of blue bottoms and white leg-length boots. Her eyes were locked on the guest while standing behind her daughter. Greetings, my name is Amber Pendragon, and this is my daughter Artoria Pendragon, and the rightful heir to the Excalibur sword and Caliburn. This caused Kiba to freeze up at the mention of the sword, but he repressed this feeling instantly. Knowing as a child she had nothing to do with them, and if she is claiming the title that means she is going to take the swords away, which he could be happier if she does not abuse the power of the blades. Lady Gremory walked up to the child and picked her up, making her look at her confusion for a minute. What? She smiled and started hugging the child. You are so adorable. I have not seen someone as cute as you since my own grandchild was born. Please call me Venelana Abeson. The girl looked at her mother and she shrugged her shoulders, but finally Angelica asked. Now can we know why there are so many guests to our home? Lord Phoenix stepped forward. There is something we wish to speak about with my son and hoped he would be here. The two women frowned at this. Sorry, but Naruto is not here right now. He is off doing some personal training. In his own words, training never stops, just the will some people have to train. He will be gone for 3 days at the least. The group frowned at this, but Zekrom asked. Well, until he returns, do you mind if we stay here? I promise everyone will behave. The women smiled. I don't see why not, given that we are family. It'd be wrong to kick all of you out. Amber motioned the women to follow them into the house, but after entering the large front of the house, they saw a huge portrait of the supernova. He had whisker marks on his face, wearing royal garb, blonde spiky hair that went down his neck, and intense blue eyes. There he is, the Phoenix's supernova Naruto Phoenix. The group stared at the portrait in respect, knowing the standing the man had at this point, and they were standing in his home, so many of them just took it in. Yo, who are these people? Everyone was taken from their thoughts to see a man with black hair walking up to the group. He had a tan complexion, carrying a black katana at his side, wearing a white sleeveless top, black pants and boots, and having a cigarette in his mouth. Yami, surprised to see you today given your wife was insistent you stay with her for the next few days. Yeah, wife finally let me out of the house, says she was wanting me to go out and do something other than her. Most of the room blushed at the comment, understanding what happened. So who are the guests and the one that is smothering the runt? Angelica laughed. This is the mother of our king. He looked at her for a minute and then the older male next to her. Bullshit, she could be his sister for all we know. I mean the older male I can see, but this woman, no way she is his mother, the woman laughed. Oh, heard that too, Chan. Gil snorted at this and saw the man become flustered by the bluntness of Yami, but the man looked at him and asked. So what are you planning to do today, Aunt? Gil growled. I was going to kick your ass, but I guess I'm spending time with my grandmother, Yami smiled. Sounds fun, I'll join you guys. The group nodded their head and started walking around the house, showing them the different places to explore at a later time, and the living rooms, formal rooms, and even showing them Naruto's private hot springs he had set up, but when they arrived at those two women exited the room, and Issei shouted. Op I. Standing there was a green-hair woman with a towel hanging over her shoulders covering her breasts and a towel wrapped around her waist making her sexier. The blonde-hair woman was doing the same thing, while sighing at the sight of another pervert in her presence while being a similar dress. Angelica and who the hell are these people? The woman laughed knowing Brandish was not one of the most understanding people after she had bathed. These are friends and are in-laws of Naruto-kun. The green-hair woman frowned at how weak most of the group was, and seeing three people specifically looking at her and Samui, her best friend, with perverted look she held her hand out and a magical circle appeared. From there everyone saw the circle appear on Sona, Issei, Saji, and Riser. The three men screamed seeing that their crotches were turned micro, while Sona blushed at the sight of her breasts stretching her top and almost popping out of their shirt. More in the case, they are having their buttons pop and this sends Serafal flying backwards with a nosebleed. What do you know? These so-called men did not have much to shrink in the first place. How sad. She grinned at the men and felt a dig at their manhood, but then again not everyone is like Naruto. He needs no one to enhance him as he is already blessed, but given that I can see his mother there is no shock. It was true among the women in the room. Lady Phoenix was probably one of the most endowed and made most women look like cherry tops at this point. Please could you turn my breasts back? I'm not enjoying the newfound back pain I'm suffering. Sona was rubbing her back and Brandish smiled knowing her pain undoes the damage done to her. I don't envy those wanting bigger breasts like that, it is pointless in my taste. The women laughed at this while Rias and Akeno pouted at the comment and Kaneko felt more vindication for her smaller chest. Anyway, these two are Brandish the army destroyer and Samui the lighting dragon goddess. Everyone stopped laughing at the boys who were changed back to normal at the names. Brandish was known in the underworld, but for some reason both Saji and Issei's gears were shaking and wanting to stay hidden, while Samui smirked at the boys. I guess Drag and that pussy Vitra don't have the balls to face the lighting dragon Tiana, no surprise. She walked away from the group. I'm going to get dressed now. Same, it is tiring to deal with perverts. Brandish walked off and Angelica and Amber laughed while Gil commented dangling from his grandmother's arms. To think this is the most modesty they have shown is something to behold, Yami laughed. Yeah, there was that one time all the women walked around naked for your old man. I swear I thought the boss was going to end up having children with all the women here. This caused the perverts to blush, men and women, and thus the group was turning their minds to be away from such thoughts. So how about we continue? Out of the shadows came a blonde-hair maid with one bang covering one side of her face. She bowed to them showing off her large breasts and black sexy maid outfit. Forgive the interruption, but Lady Phoenix requires the attention of everyone here. Everyone looked at her, but she shook her head. I mean to say Naruto-sama's wife wants everyone to gather in the kitchen, and that is the first wife and the mother of his youngest child. Okay, we will head there. Soon the group followed the women in question to the dining hall and saw that food and refreshments had been set out for everyone. What was surprising was that Zekrom and Lady and Lord Phoenix were given high-quality chairs to sit in and relax, while Gil and his sister sat in the laps of the women in the room being traded every few minutes. The maids were waiting in the corners for the main wife to show up, but Issei finally got tired of being quiet. Okay, where is that asshole? I mean seriously, shouldn't he be here to look after his guests already? I mean someone has to have told him that we are here. No. Yami being annoyed with the brat took his head and slammed it into the table, leaving it broken on impact and him hitting the floor face first. Brat, you don't make demands of Naruto-sama or his family. If he is away and you better damn understand this, got it? He gave the entire room an evil look and everyone shut fearing the man and his insane strength that he displayed. Please welcome the Queen of Devils and the youngest child Elisa. Out of the main double doors came someone that had the whole room frozen in shock. It was a woman with long silver hair, sliver eyes, and wearing a long silver dress that hugged her incredible figure tightly. In her arms was a cooing baby, and she had silver hair, but blue eyes like her father. Standing there was Grayfia Phoenix Lucifuge, first wife of Naruto Phoenix and mother of his 7-month-old daughter Lisa. In the manor, everyone was standing still. Nobody could fathom what they were seeing at this point, looking at the woman in front of them and then the woman next to Surzich. It made no sense. They could not understand who the hell she was and why she seemed to look like Grayfia. Well, a few were thinking something and looking at the woman in question holding the cooing baby and then back to Grayfia seeing her terrified. Hello everyone, she bowed her head and smiled down to her child who was cooing at her mother wanting attention. Who the hell? Zekrom smiled. Isn't it obvious, Urzich? The Lucifer stared at his grandfather and the Devil King. What are you talking about? Who is this impostor? He laughed. Obviously this is the real Grayfia. What? The whole room was shitting bricks. How is this possible? Quite joking, grandfather, this is obviously a fake. Rias could not imagine it, but he countered. Of course it is her, I recognize her aura better than anyone, she was brought before me by Naruto ages ago when she surrendered to our side, I can't believe it, I didn't notice it before, he smiled at the woman, you were always here. She shook her head. Contrary to the official story, I always hated Surzich, nothing against him personal, but he was too clingy for my taste, and I felt the need for someone that was more suited for me, so, as the story goes for the rest of the higher-ups, I didn't choose to marry Surzich, I married Naruto. The Lucifer frowned at this. Then who is this? He turned to his wife and mother of his son with a questioning glare. Well, he was not angry about the revelation, as this woman was the love of his life. He wanted to know who he had married. Why don't you tell them the truth, Selfie? The woman frowned. What are you talking about, fake? Grayfia smiled brightly, and this started to form a cold aura in the room. Seraphol and the others that used ice could feel the power was much stronger than theirs. This terrified Seraphol, as now she realized that if this was the woman that fought her for the title of Leviathan, she might have been handed a vicious ass whooping. Why, how you froze me in my home in the ice shell, doing this, taking my place in the world, is Grayfia comfortable destroying my husband's heart, destroying the ties that bind the clans, also you could pretend to be me for Surzich, Selfie, the woman standing next to Grayfia frowned. I don't know. It's the truth, Selfie frowned at Yami who blew smoke into her face, Grayfia would not lie about something like this, and plus she has something that you don't have. What? This, Grayfia removed the back of her dress and showing an intricate tattoo on her back, it took the form of the Lucifuge family symbol and showing a crown sitting in the middle of the clan sign. This, everyone that knew what that meant paled, but the younger ones did not, and Selfie freezed up. Wait, that's… Yep, Yami smiled at the group, that birth tattoo is given only to the next head of the family, and given what happened to her brother, this is Grayfia, he laughed, meaning she is the rightful heir to the Lucifuge family, and she is the true Grayfia. Surzich was the one taking this the worst, the woman that was standing next to him was his wife, sure, but she lied to him. Surzich-kun, he turned to Selfie, please no, I did not lie to you because of one reason or another, all I ever wanted to be with you, to be in your arms and tell you how much I love you, but you always had eyes for Grayfia that I couldn't stand it, so in a moment of bad judgment, I did this to be with you and finally have my dream fulfilled. Surzich stared at the woman. A minute passed before he hugged her and smiled. I love you all the same, nothing will change that, just promise me that we can talk about this in length. Turning to Grayfia, now about you, she narrowed her eyes at him. If you are going to demand answers, I suggest you back off now, I have my child with me, and if you dare lay a finger on me or anyone in this house, Naruto might remind you why you didn't anger him again. Surzich flinched. How could he forget that brutal day, after it was discovered that Selfie as Grayfia was having sex with him in her bed with Naruto? He flew into a rage. This rage was legendary as it took most of the clans everything they had to stop Naruto from killing him. After the event, Naruto demanded retribution for this insult to his honor and fought Surzich in a straight-up knockdown fight. While he was powerful, Naruto was always on another level to begin with, but it was worse now given that he was fueled by absolute rage and hatred, and this led to the worst day of his life. More in the case, after clashing with Naruto, he had massive burn scars all over his body and even lost a few years on his life. Naruto told him if he wanted to he would have killed him for this and to keep her while he left, and thus destroying the fragile friendship that he had with him and the others. Naruto disappearing to the mountain was something only the Phoenix clan knew about and refused to tell him or the other mass about out of spite for what happened and just turning a blind eye to the fact they spat on him. The tense moment was interrupted by Ravel who walked up to Grayfia and peered at the baby. Grayfia-sama, is this my niece? She smiled. Yes, would you like to hold her? She nodded to this and quickly held the baby close to her and smiled down at her little niece. The baby in question stared at her for a second and then grabbed some of her hair that was in her face and pulled on it. She grunted. Oh, pretty strong baby there, she smiled. Yes, given who her father was I figured that would be the case. Turning to the rest of the room, please have a seat, we are serving dinner and then discussing what tomorrow's schedule will be. After taking their seats with Grayfia sitting at the head of the table, Zekrom given a luxury chair of comfort as per orders by Grayfia, and the children being forced to sit in the arms of Venilana and Lady Phoenix, everyone began digging into the food. Now then, Grayfia looked at the group with a dark look, tomorrow I'm going to let all of you go into the nearby village that we have set up on this mountain. Please note that the leader there is aware of the people here and has made it clear that they treat you with courtesy, but dare to do anything uncouth to them, and I will make sure Naruto knows after I tear you to shreds myself. Yami blew smoke while sitting against the wall. Plus my wife is the leader of the village, so do something like that and I will kill you myself. The group gulped at the large man who gave them a very dark grin. Also, I have sent a message to Naruto alerting him to your presence and should hear back from him tomorrow hopefully, but given his training I'm not sure, Lord Phoenix asked. Is there a reason my son is training at this time? I'm afraid so. You see, a while back Naruto encountered a powerful deity that was demanding he come with him. He refused, and to protect us, he went all out with the creature in question, fighting with a toe-to-toe. However, due to the energy of the creature in question he suffered from a poisoning that messed up his control of his power, so at this point he is having to retrain himself to use his full power again. This worried everyone that knew Naruto, as this was a rare thing, someone powerful enough to give him this much trouble. Who could it be? Anyway, turning to Grayfia she smiled at them slightly. Please enjoy your meal and we shall continue the tour of the mountain sometime tomorrow. Also, she gave them a cold glare. Do not wander around the house without permission or try to enter places that are restricted by the maids or I promise your death will not be swift. The group gulped at this comment and after eating their meals went to their own individual rooms and waiting to see what tomorrow will bring for them. Time skip. After the group had a chance to get their bearings and head out of the house, they soon were taking to a nearby town. Arriving at the town they were surprised that the whole place could almost equal the size and population of the town of Kuo itself, but upon entering the town Surzich and the other mouse with him and the elder devils were shocked. Everyone in the town had Nico features either by having a tailor ears, gold cat-like eyes, or even having two tails signaling they were necocious. What the hell? Surzich turned to Grayfia who was holding her daughter in her arms. Explain this now. The woman glared at the former friend of her husband. What was that? He glared back. How come Naruto is harboring the Nico race? Did you not hear about what happened? Grayfia glared harder and her aura was becoming more and more intense. Don't take that attitude with me, asshole. Given what you have done, I don't think you really have some high moral ground to stand on. He flinched but did not back down until Seraphil, finally seeing how things were going to go, got between them. Okay, everyone calm down. Turning to her friend she glared, Surzich, we are here as guests and as guests, we are not allowed to say or do things that will get us kicked out of here. He grunted but relented while Seraphil turned to Grayfia, seeing her still glaring at them, but also her daughter also seemed to be glaring at them. Grayfia, please understand where we are coming from in this situation. We are confused with the presence of the Nico race here in the mountain without knowing about it. She raised an eyebrow. The man turned her head. You never told them, I'm guessing. Everyone turned to Lord Bale and he smirked. Nope, Grayfia sighed. That would have been nice to know before bringing them here to the home of a race that is said to be almost extinct. Wait, hold on, time out. Everyone turned to say, what the hell do you mean these sexy cat women are extinct? I mean they are all gathered up here in the mountains and living here and stuff. True, Seraphil sighed. Years ago a Nekashu named Kuroka killed her king and became a SS-class criminal. The death was caused by the use of Senjutsu and the aftermath was devils calling for blood. I did everything I could to prevent the hunting, but someone allowed this to happen while I was running damage control, and thus the race was hunted to extinction, with the exception of one or two that are still running around. She turned her head. Well, we thought at least. As you can guess, the faction that the Nekashu race was not too happy about all of this that happened at this time. True, but what you all failed to notice or failed to look into is that the asshole that was Kuroka's king was planning on using her sister for experiments. Basically he was planning on torturing and breeding a child in order to learn the secrets of Senjutsu and then use it on himself to gain the powers to manipulate nature itself. She glared at the group. Of course Naruto got word of this after the poor girl ran into him while he was wandering on one of his rare days off the mountain and he quickly sprang into action. He saved all the Nekashus that were still alive, bringing them to the mountain, explaining why Kuroka did what she did, and finally negotiating with Yasaka to keep the devils from going to war with multiple races due to this. Hearing this, Surzich narrowed his eyes. Shesir, isn't she? Grayfia frowned. What if she is? Before Surzich could say anything Zekrom finally coughed. Word of advice, Surzich, stop while you're ahead, otherwise you might get all of us killed. He pointed to the pissed off ice woman and at the same time some of the nearby Nikos looking at the group with hatred and loathing, but the scariest expression was Yami, who staring down at the group showed the darkness forming out of his arm, scaring the shit out of him. Try it, I fucking dare you, asshole. You go after that poor girl after everything that has happened and I will fucking end you here on the mountain now. Yami. Everyone was released from the tense situation when they saw a beautiful woman walking to them. She had gold eyes, black cat ears, and wearing a tight-looking black dress, and having a killer figure compared to most women. Next to her was twin of sorts, but she had dark purple eyes with slits and had a slightly bigger bust and ass compared to her counterpart. They would hesitate to say the first Nico woman calling for Yami was about a D cup, while the other is about an E cup. Yori, what are you doing here? She smiled. I heard from some of my kin that we had visitors to our small town, so I thought I stop by and see who it is." She frowned, surprising that we have so many and at the same time some unwelcome guests, but she bowed to them. "Let it never be said I'm not someone that is willing to extend an olive branch. Welcome to our humble home. Please enjoy your visit and please note that anything done against the women here and you'll answer to me." She showed off her two tails behind her and smiled darkly at the group with senjutsu permeating from the air. The group nodded their head before she walked up to Zekrom Bale and handed him a key and a seal. "Naruto-sama asked me to give this to you when you came to visit. This is a rune tag only key to you that'll take you to your own private villa here on the mountain, and he has it decorated just for you. Also, the key is for your house to use as you please." The man smiled. "I will thank Naruto when I see him." She smiled but saw the other woman was sniffing the air. "Is there something wrong, Kari?" She frowned. Walking up to Kiba she sniffed him for a bit. "You're pretty stressed, child." She smiled and licked his cheek, making him blush and Tsubaki glare at the woman. "Tell me, are you holding on to some kind of dark secrets?" The teen frowned. "I am and I don't want to tell you about them." She smiled and grabbed the boy by his shirt and started walking away with him with a sway to her hips. "Well, how about we talk after we free up some of that stress you are carrying around?" Kiba gulped, turning to the woman named Yori. "Can you? Have fun, my child, and try to be careful with him, Kari. I think he is a virgin." The group was shocked, jaws hitting the ground with how blatant it was. She was about to drag him off and bang him, but what was funnier is that Riser was glaring at the low-class devil, getting to bang a sexy kitten woman like that, while the women in this town were not going to give him the time of day. Issei was pissed that Kiba was going to lose his virginity before him, and he was angry knowing that he was right. Pretty boys get all the shit, while people like him get nothing. Tsubaki, already crushing on Kiba, was furious this catwoman was taking her love interest, so without waiting for her king, she took off after them and was shouting at her to unhand Kiba. The group was shocked how out of character she was acting in this case, and how she was crushing on Kiba, making Issei even more jealous. "I swear she has the worst libido that I ever seen of Nico's." Yori smacked her husband's chest lightly. "I didn't hear you complaining for the last few days," he smiled. "Yeah, yours is a healthy sex life with me, not like her." He kissed his wife, and soon Yori purred. "You're damn right," she smiled at the group. "Now then I will start a tour of our village, and please note, yes, the Nikos are aware who you all are, and they are going to be on their best behavior, but if I find one of you does something I will punish you before Naruto-sama does so." Soon the group continued into the town, and seeing the place was a thriving home was amazing to all of them. Especially considering while they were tense, the group made it clear that the women were not happy to see them. "After the massacre, Naruto-sama helped build our new home here on the mountain. He took us in and protected us from other races that found out we were up here and tried to come and finish the job they started. However, with him and his peerage, we never had to fear those that dared to enter this mountain. Especially since it prevents those unworthy of coming to the mountain from coming here as well." Yori frowned. "I'm sorry, but what I'm talking about, I can only tell you that Naruto-sama is the one that has to tell you. The rest of us were sworn to silence due to some incidents in the past." "Interesting." Zekrom saw a black-haired woman in the distance, and she was holding two children in her arms, while another was wrapped around her waist. "Is that?" The group turned and were shocked to see who it was, and the woman in question was frozen in fear and shock. "Kuroka." Surzich was about to power up, but soon found a sword at his neck. "Move and I promise on the name of my master, I will fucking remove your head right here and now." "But you know who she is." "True, but at the same time you refuse to hear or listen to her side of things, making me wonder why you were picked to become the Devil King." The man growled. "It does not matter, she is to be held accountable for murdering a pure-blood devil." Zekrom, seeing how tense things are, shouted. "Surzich, hold your tongue." The entire area saw the man glaring at the group. "We were warned to not try anything, and that means trying to arrest an innocent woman with her children. The fact you have the audacity to ignore me makes me wonder if you can truly be trusted." He then turned to the Nico in question, who was holding her children close in fear. Without warning and to the shock of everyone present, he bowed to the woman. He had his head in the dirt and was dirtying his nice pants by being on his knees. "Zekrom-sama." The man growled. "Shut up." The group clammed up and he deeply inhaled before saying, "Kuroka, on behalf of the Bale family and the devil race, one would like to apologize for what has happened to you. It was not fair in the least, and you should have never been subjected to it. Rest assured your name will be cleared, and the truth of what the devil family did to you and your sister will be made public for all to hear." Kuroka was shocked by this, but saw one of her children getting out of her arms and crawling to the man. She looked at him and tilted her head with her ears twitching and tail wagging behind her. "Naya," she pat the man's head and he smiled. "Thank you, little one." He picked up the child and carefully held her in his arms. "I must say you have adorable children, Kuroka, who is the lucky father." The woman, still tense, smiled. Naruto saw Manaya, the entire group was shocked, but Lady Phoenix and Ravel quickly approached her and asked to see their grandchildren niece-nephew closer. She agreed, but kept them close in fear of them getting hurt for being half-breeds. The oldest one is Fujima, pointing to her daughter in her arms. I named her after my mother, as she reminds me so much of her, and makes me wish she was here to see these precious children. Naya. She held up the little girl that is younger than Gil and Artoria, but older than Alasa. She had dark gray hair with blue eyes with slits in them, and whisker marks on her face similar to Naruto. Her ears and tail were gray in color, giving her more of a distinct look compared to her siblings. The boy in my arms is Minato. The group looked at the boy baby who was slightly younger looking than his sister, but he had blonde hair and hazel eyes with no whiskers on his face. His tail and ears were blonde with white outline in and around. He had a smile on his face, and Ravel quickly picked him up and cuddled with the adorable child. Lady Phoenix took the oldest and was just holding her close to her bosom, which led to the baby trying to drink from her breasts. She laughed at this, and the group turned away from the moment other than Lord Phoenix, who laughed with his wife and played with the children as well. Hiroka smiled and pointed at the one in Zekrum's arms who was pulling on his hair and causing the man to grunt. That is Kurum. She is the youngest of her siblings. The child in question looked at people staring at her with a blank expression, but they noticed that she was the closest in looks to her mother and father, dark blonde hair that was darker near the roots. A blue left eye and a hazel right eye and no whiskers on her face. Her cat tail and ears were similar to hair in color and made her more adorable, especially when her cheeks puffed up in annoyance at the strange people staring at her. Hineko passed out. Hiroka children, she thought as she blacked out. Hineko, Rias said as she tried to wake her rook up. Mama Fujima muttered as she pulled on Kuroka's outfit, pointing at Kaneko, Aunt Shirin, Naya. Kuroka felt her heart tighten at this as she looked at Kaneko's prone form. No, she isn't your Aunt Shirin, Naya, Kuroka said disheartened. Before the group could continue with the display of affection, they hear a scream sending Yori into a mad dash. Kuroka right on her heels, and the group quickly followed, careful with the children in tow. Gil helping his sister, moving quickly to keep up with the adults, while Lalasa was just sitting in her mother's arms now asleep. When they arrived at the scream, they saw something that made them boil in anger. Riser, who had snuck off from the group earlier after seeing the low-class devil get a Nico woman, was harassing a female Nekashu who was trying to fight him off. The others in the area were about to turn his ass into mush, but Yori got there and hit the man in the face with a healthy amount of senjutsu, sending him flying, landing into a building. He tried to sit up but saw the woman in Yami glaring at him and she was feral. The fuck were you doing? I was just having some fun, not like she has the right to deny Riser, the woman stomped on his face. She sure as hell does when she is only 15, you fucker. The girl in question, while looked more mature than most, the truth is that she was only this way after years of training and good genes. I want you out of my town. Yami nodded his head, and without warning all the devils were removed from the premise of the city, while they could feel the large concentration of senjutsu radiating in the air. You're lucky, you little shit. Riser, who was now underneath the grip of Yami, could see the darkness forming around his body. Anyone else, and I would have skinned them and brought their head as an offering for my wife. If not for your brother, I would slaughter you. He threw him to his parents, where his father smacked him across the face. We will talk about this behavior at a later time, got it? Lady Phoenix had a smile on her face that promised pain, but he snorted. She had no right to deny me a true pure blood, not fault she was a slew. He felt a sword pierce his chest and saw that Gil was aiming the blade at him and more weapons were coming out. Finish that sentence and I'll kill you, father's anger be damned. Angelica nodded her head before smacking her son for cursing in front of the other children. Alright, Zekrom, who was handing Kuroka her daughter, who was frowning being out of reach of the fun man, let's head back to the manor before we do something else that angers the Nekashu and Nekomata, Kuroka sighed. That means I'll see all of you later. Tell Naruto-kun it'll be over when he comes home. Naya, come on kittens, we are going. The children whined about leaving the warmth of the strangers that were their family, but they went with her. From there she teleported back into the town, leaving the group there to walk back to the manor. On another part of the mountain, there was a blonde maid wearing a very revealing dress and having one part of her face covered by the hair. The woman had an umbrella with her and was ready at a moment's notice, given her short skirt allowed free movement. Next to her was an identical woman who had a slightly larger set of breasts and had her hair done up longer than her counterpart. She was sitting there with her sister, and they were watching the person in the middle of the crater standing there with an intense aura about him. The man in question was covered in flames, making it almost impossible to make out any part of him other than his blonde hair and some faded marks on his face. Naruto-sama, hearing his name, the man turned his head. What is it, Hilda? We are sorry to interrupt your training, but we are here to report that you have guests at the palace. Really? The flames died down a bit, but he was still covered in them. Who is it? It is your family, my lord. The Gremory family, Peerages, and Sirzich and Serafal have come with a faker. Naruto's eyes narrowed at the thought of his former friends and sighed. I see, and they need me for something. The two maids nodded their head and saw him walking up to them slowly. He was like a predator, gazing upon them as if measuring their worth to him. They shivered in fear as they were fearful that his rage might be turned on them. It was no secret what happened all those years ago in the underworld to them, and the peerages all of them found out at some point, but bringing it up with Naruto was almost forbidden to the point that most would find themselves in the path of his anger. Anything else? The bustier maid shifted. Yes, it would seem they visited the Nico village and caused a scene, the usual thing when finding out about their race being alive, and that you're protecting Kuroka, her and children, but also, she gulped, your brother Rias Phoenix sexually assaulted an underage Nekashu girl in the town to have his way with her. It was stopped. She frowned, feeling the fire growing more intense from the comment alone, thanks to Yami and the others there, and they were removed from the city. I see. Naruto frowned at the thoughts of his siblings. He honestly had high hopes for all of them when they were born. While he did not come down from the mountain, he still tried to keep an eye on them. Hell, the only one of them that knew about him, or at least knew his face, was Ruvel, as he was burned during the time of the war. When Rias was born, he had high hopes for him as well, but at the same time, hearing how he acts and the way he behaves made him wonder if they were really siblings. He all but disowned his brother in annoyance, as he demanded better and better gifts for every birthday, until one day he sent a letter telling him he would not get any more gifts from him due to his horrible behavior and attitude. From what he learned, he did not take this very well. Ravel was the hope of the family, with her being younger than her siblings. She had self-control, powerful magic, and seemed to have a better grasp of politics and strategy than her idiotic king brother. Honestly, he was considering giving her to one of his pieces who was promoted that way. She could learn the path of being a king and then pursue her own peerage at a later date. Naruto was also aware of the others, the Grimoires and Citrus, and what they had been up to for the time he was gone. More importantly, he knew his family was engaging Rias to Rias, and sighed knowing why they were here. He was not a fan of the engagement for different reasons, but the one that being the biggest is that Rias would do anything to get out of it. He knew about his brother's reputation, and thus he was sure the man was finally going to push her to doing something drastic. If that happened, then his family would be humiliated from this, and he would not allow that to happen again. Never again. The fire exploded from his body and soon turned pure white with tints of black inside of it. His figure was covered in the fire, but you could make out a dark silhouette standing there with dark red eyes and a demonic physique. I won't allow it. I will not allow them to humiliate me again. Never. The pillar exploded, rocking the entire mountain, and this sent the group in the distance shivering as they felt the power, making them wonder what it could have possibly been until Grayfia smiled. Seems Naruto-sama found out and is heading home now. But the group, everyone had returned to the mansion and were now relaxing, thanks to Surzich and Rias. Things were tense already with Rias, fearing that her brother and Rias might have screwed things up with Naruto, more so to get out of this arranged marriage with his prick of a brother. She was hoping that things don't get worse than this. In the living room, everyone was situated in different places, with the matriarchs and Ravel over in the middle of the room playing with the children. Gil was watching his baby sister Lisa, who was crawling on the floor excited of the new experience. Artoria was spending time with her grandmother and aunt, explaining all the cool stuff her mother and father have shown her and what she can do, along with having her own holy sword to hold the placement of Excalibur. On the other side of the room was Lord Phoenix and Lord Grimoire talking to Zekrom, hoping to excuse their sons for their actions earlier and hoping Naruto would be a better mood when they felt the power he unleashed. They both knew that it was only going to get worse, as he was not someone to cross twice. Hell. Rivzium only did that once and swore to never do it again, out of fear of pissing off Naruto again. The man was so terrified it was the real reason he never took part in the war. As well, Naruto was only about 20 at the time. His power already was massive and he was feared by all. That and his charisma had already turned more than 80% of the underworld's middle and low class devils to his side. Rias, he and his peerage, were sitting in a corner being watched by the Grayfia and Brandish. Rias had tried his luck with the ladder and found out firsthand why it is bad to cross someone that could shrink anything that suits her means and squish them like a bug. After this, his father slapped him, and so did his mother, in shame with how he was behaving in his brother's home, and warned him there would be consequences when they returned home, and if he was lucky he might keep his peerage, if not then lose them forever. He was furious, of course, but challenging his stronger parents and the others in this house was not well advised. The door opened with a thud, and everyone saw a disheveled and relaxed Kiba walking into the room. His clothes were roughed up, and it would seem that his jacket was torn to shreds by claws, and his pants were only recently fastened. Next to him, Tsubaki was also disheveled, and with one top undone along with her smoothing outer skirt. Kiba smiled. "Hello, sorry I was gone so long," Issei glared at him. "Bastard." He pointed his finger at him and was in his face. "You were gone for almost 3 hours. It's not fair. How can the sexy catwomen give you the chance of day but not me? You didn't even appreciate sex, let alone the sexy figure of a woman." He was clawing at the side of his head trying to wrap his mind around it, but Tsubaki glared at him. We are both tired, now is not the time for stupid stories of delusion and grandeur. Turning to her king she bowed, I apologize for leaving you my king, I was. It's fine, Sona smiled drinking some tea comfortably in her seat. I know about your feelings for Kiba, so I expected that to happen when you saw him dragged off. Tsubaki blushed deeply and Kiba did as well. So how was it? Yami walked into the room having lit another cigarette and carrying a bottle of sake. Kiba blushed deeply and eyes got glossy, while Tsubaki licked her lips in remembrance and rubbed her thighs together. Fucker. Issei was crying blood now and he was slamming his head into the ground. How can you have sex before me? It is not fair. Everyone rolled their eyes or just looked at Rias who was blushing in embarrassment. She really need to think more carefully about the men she recruited from now on, as this was just getting weird. Seriously, she is wondering if he was the weirdest, and that is saying something given she has a now relaxed knight and a trap bishop. Well kid, sounds like you had fun, glad to hear, Yami smiled. Trust me when I tell you there are few things to enjoy in this life, so go experience them. He hands him a shot of sake which he tries to push away, but the dark look in his eyes told him, drink it, you stupid little shit. Seeing this he drank the sake in a single going and thus felt himself cough. Ahahaha. Yeah, most rookies don't suck it down in one go, next time try sipping it slowly instead. G cough, got it. By the way, you use protection right? Kiba and Tsubaki froze in shock and fear and he laughed even louder. Congrats kid, you might have some kitties on the way if not from your girlfriend but the sexy Catwoman. Kiba paled, it wasn't possible right? Oh Kiba, it is possible if the writer makes it. With the group, everyone was just relaxing with drinks, but soon Grayfia went ramrod straight. Hess here. Everyone looked at her confusion. Naruto has returned home and he is waiting for us in the throne room. This shocked everyone present and this made Lord Gremory ask. I thought he wouldn't be back sooner. She shook her head. It would seem the maid sent word of your arrival and he is intrigued yet annoyed about the recent news. If I was you guys I wouldn't keep him waiting as he has a bit of temper when angry. Lord Gremory and Phoenix both paled. They would know as Naruto really took after his mother in more than one way. For the most part, when furious he and his mother were almost carbon copies of each other and showing their almost unlimited rage that can give them the strength to force entire armies into submission with nothing more than a small glare. Lord Phoenix learned this after forgetting his anniversary 1 year, thus being double-teamed by his son and wife who earned brownie points for this with her. Lord Gremory, well he pissed her off once mentioning her age, and this earned him a kick to the nuts by the wife and then a kick to the head by the son. Elisa seeing and sensing her father energy giggled and without warning she was gone. What the hell? The entire room saw the infant just disappear as if nothing happened. Grayfia only sighed. She does this whenever her father is home, we best head there now. Soon the entire room began their long trek into the throne room. Everyone wondered how Naruto looked like compared to the old painting that was hanging in the front of the house. I mean he had to have changed a little bit right? Opening the door, everyone looked into the throne room, seeing that it was massive compared to the rest of the rooms in the house. It consisted of 2 thrones, a long red rug, and multiple pillars for this massive empty room. Most saw it as a classic taste, but it was more for show as Naruto rarely spent time in this boring place. At the large golden throne there was the symbol of a phoenix with a crown at the top. At the sides were 2 blonde maids the group recognized and Ravel definitely knew, as they were servants at their home from time to time that his brother sent to them, especially on her birthday. They showed up to drop off presents and interesting tomes of magic for her. Riser on the other hand. Pale as they were 2 women that beat the shit out of him every time they visit when they caught him either being perverse or trying to cope a feel on accident. But what drew everyone's attention was the people sitting on the throne at this time, one being Elisa who was giggling and pulling at the hair of the person she was sitting on. The person in question was a short child with blonde spiky hair, dark blue eyes that shone with power and charisma. The child in question was barely taller than Gil at this time and considerably the room could feel the suppressed aura around him. The most distinct feature was the whiskers on his face and this showed he is who they thought he was. Naruto Phoenix, the supernova, the strongest devil to exist and the man they call the true devil king. Son. Turning his head he smiled at his father. Greetings family and peons, it has been ages since we had guests from the devil factions to join me in my home, although you have been probably the rudest guests I've had in the last few years. Naruto. Naruto looked at Zekrom and saw the shock on his face, what I don't understand. Naruto sighed figuring this would be the reaction of the room. Contrary to the look him still the same person that left all of you years ago, he smiled at the group and saw his mother rush up to him and pick him up. He sighed seeing this coming and soon he and his daughter were being smothered in his mother's impressive bust. Oh my gosh. I thought my grandchildren were adorable, but this, I can't take it anymore. You are just absolutely perfect Naruto just like you were when you were much younger. Then she started crying, I'm so old. Naruto pulling his head out of his mother's breasts along with his daughter's who was looking on in confusion he said. Don't worry mom, didn't you hear? Women don't age, they stay perfect, we men age horribly though. Naruto turned his head and gave a subtle motion for his father who coughed and hugged her waist. That's right, you are like fine wine, Naruto would have palmed, but this led to him watching his mother punching him into the wall. I know him like wine, once opened I spoil you, don't have rub it in my face. She started crying more and more, finally leading to Naruto sighing and kissing his mother on the head. Oh, my baby always knew how to cheer me up. She hugged him tightly while sitting on the throne with him on her lap and his daughter on his own. It was a funny scene, but no one dared laugh in fear of angering Naruto. So Surzichi stared at the man that was his friend years ago. You dare to show your face to me after what you did and after what you attempted to do in town. The man frowned. Nar, the chibi child laughed. I don't know whether to applaud your bravery or condemn you for being this dumb. Naruto am not. Don't try to bullshit me, Surzichi. You attempted to attack Kuroka, you wanted to condemn the Nico race for existing, for defending one of their own, so here is what I have to say to this. He glared, and soon the worm got warmer with flames flickering off his body, making his daughter laugh at the fire, while his mother just stared at him blankly. You ever try to harm the mother to my children or her people, I will come back down and I will murder you. You made your choices in believing that liar next to you. The woman flinched at his gaze. This means that you also threw away our friendship for betraying me. Make no mistake, you cross me again and no one will save you this time. Naruto turned his head away from his former friend and back to the people before him. So there must be a reason you are all here and I can guess why it is. He looked at Ria's grimoire and measured her up. While on the outside he could see she was a very beautiful girl like her mother and that she was compassionate with her peerage. He did sigh. She was weak, weaker than she should be at her age. Hell, he remembered when he was about her age. He could already bring entire armies to their knees with his aura alone, but she would have to really fight with everything she had to end the armies that came her way, and that is if she can defeat them is the big question to raise in this case. Naruto noticed her peerage compared to others was weak as well. While powerful individually, he could tell they had not been trained to the ground, broken and then fixed up just to be broken again. He honestly was disappointed in this matter and wished for more out of them, given that she alone could one day challenge his peerage and entertain them, but sadly as of now they failed to even interest them. Hell, he would only need to send Yami, and he was probably one of his middle-tier members of his group that could easily crush everyone in their peerage without much trouble. Naruto-sama, turning his attention back to her, he saw she was looking at him from a kneeling position. My lord, please, I request you hear me on a request I would like to push forward, as you probably haven't heard him. The wed my idiotic brother, no? Why yes, how did you know, Naruto-sama? Naruto laughed. Little one, there is very few things in this place that escape my sight, and honestly you marrying my brother is not one of them. I still get information about things outside my home all the time. Then you know. I also know that you had a fallen angel problem in Kuo recently and you also tried giving your virginity to your pawn in the hopes that this would get you out of the contract. This shocked her, as far as she knew only her brother and sister-in-law knew about that bit of information. Lord Grimoire sighed and his wife shook her head. Rias was that desperate. They seriously doubted it would have helped given that Rias wanted her and thus he would take her even if spoiled or pregnant at some point. Hell, he might have had her abort the baby just to spite her or do it himself. That terrified him as he knew that was a very real possibility. Rias glared. You bit. Naruto threw a small fire-shaped needle at his brother, shutting him up when it cut his cheek. Stay silent, fool. Don't think I don't know about your behavior either, especially when you attempted to force yourself on an underage and virgin Nico in the village earlier. Make no mistake, there is going to be hell to pay for that, and we'll get to that soon. Turning his head he looked back at Rias. Now onto you, I know why you are here, he smiled. You want out of the marriage arrangement with my brother and hope that I will grant this wish to you. Yes please my lord. Naruto looked at her for a second and tapped his mother's lap, making her let him go. He left his youngest in her lap to lay with her fingers. What can you give me though is the question now, Rias. Eh? The room was confused and some were terrified about the question that was being posed. Let's not be dumb with each other, Rias, you know how this works. For me to grant this wish to you, I have to get something in trade for it. That is how this works, so what do you have that I could want? Rias was stumped. She didn't expect this from him. She was either expecting a flat-out no or a flat-out yes. She was not expecting this to lead to her having to give something up in trade. Naruto smiled. Do you have anything? He then felt a magical presence grow and turned to see the Tina say he think the peasant's name is. How dare you treat president like this? He then heard a voice shout boost and before anyone could stop him he charged at Naruto. The man in question just watched as he slowly rushed at him and just deadpanned. This is the one that the white one will fight soon. Seriously? This is just sad. Naruto moved his head to the side dodging the sloppy punch. Is that all you got, brat? This is nothing. He boosted more, increasing his power and speed a bit, but he still failed to hit Naruto, who just yawned at his weak-ass attempts. Please tell me you have some ace in the hole, dodging you is already about to put me to sleep, the team grunted and soon shouted. Balance breaker. Hearing this, Naruto saw him turn into some kind of red armored man, which is not as impressive in his opinion. During the moment of his transformation, he could have sent a fire spear through his stomach, stopping this in mid-movement and ending his life on the spot. So we getting serious now? Naruto grinned, then I guess I should take this more seriously. No. The chibi was dodging all the strikes and watching as his blows were overstriking him. Soon in a rage Issei flew into the sky and fired a red orb of energy at him, which he moved out of the way of, but it flew at his youngest daughter, scaring him a bit. However, his fears were unfounded thanks to Yolda coming to their aid and cutting the attack in half with ease and then dissipating it with ease. Now pissed, Naruto turned his eyes to him and his body started enveloping itself with fire. Mess with that is fine, but the minute you put my children in danger, that is when I get furious. Naruto blurred and rammed his entire fist through Issei's chest and threw him across the grounds without a second, though letting his armor disappear and him dying on the floor. The blonde former nun ran to his side and started healing his wound as best as she could, but Naruto scoffed. He would live. He missed vital organs on purpose, only because he didn't dead person on his floor ruining the mood. Now then, turning his head, he looked at his youngest who clapped at the show and smiled before turning back to Rias. Was that supposed to intimidate me or something? No. Naruto-sama, rest assured I would never have allowed that to happen or planned something stupid. My pawn thinks with his penis, and his penis is not very bright. Regardless, I will deal with him later, but now that I see it, I have something I want from him. I want some scales from the Red Dragon Emperor. Son, turning to his father, why would you want the scales of the gear? Naruto smiled. There is a reason, and that is only for me to know. Give me the scales, and I will allow the marriage to be annulled and let you be on your way. Wait just a fucking minute. Great, another idiot. Turning his head, he saw his brother staring and glaring at him. Yes, Riser, what is it? Can't you see him in the middle? Riser grabbed him by the front of his shirt. I'm tired of you acting like you are hot shit when in reality you're not. As far as I'm concerned, the minute you left our noble home you were unworthy of the blood in your veins and all you have here. Naruto's eyes turned sharp, but Yami was already there and he cut the boy's arm off. Riser backed. You filthy commoner. Yeah, well, I've been asking for that for a bit, Riser finally roared, and after his arm came back grew out his fire wings. I will not be talked down to by some filth and a traitor. Die. He summoned a fireball before flinging it at Naruto. Sadly, this attack was cut to pieces. Seeing this, Riser continued this, trying to hit the bulky man. Forgive me, Naruto-sama, but I think it is time someone showed him the difference in power, Naruto sighed. Yes, don't kill him, I will punish him after this, Yami. You got it, boss. Without warning, he leapt into the air and gathering his darkness magic into his hand, slammed it on top of the boy's head. This sent Riser falling to the ground with a thud. Riser fired another volley of fire spears at him, but he just cut them to pieces faster than he could fire them. At the same time, Yami landed on his stomach and punched him harder in the face than before. Riser blasted a hug concentration of magic into his face, but it did not work as Yami had already gathered a small black hole at his chest and soon sucked the flames into them. You really are his brother? What a joke. I mean, how weak can one person be at this point? Don't look down on me. Yami sighed, and without warning he slammed a higher concentration of magic into his face. This sent him deeper into the floor before knocking him out completely. That was easy. Yami blew smoke into his face. So boss, sorry about the floor. It's fine, Yami, I'll have it fixed later, just make sure the idiot doesn't move. Turning his head back to Rias, present me the scales tomorrow and I will make sure the arrangement is annulled. Truth is that Naruto would have done it some other ways as well, but he has to do it this way to cover his own motives. He doesn't want the Gremory clan close to his own ever again after what they did to him and did nothing to fix the mistake. Well, not true. Lord and Lady Gremory were furious, but they couldn't do much as the underworld were cheering on the power couple and had to play in the realm of politics. He, however, didn't have to entertain this, as he would just kill the elders if they continued to think they were his equal in any way, shape or form. Turning his view to Seraphil, he saw she was emotionless, but knew that deep down she wanted to speak to him, so with a silent hand gesture, he motioned that they would talk alone later. Now for the rest of you, he turned his head to the Citri family and the others present. Note, you are guests in my home, so you are more than welcome to stay the night before heading back, but make no mistake, cross me or my family, and you will pay for it like my former brother is about to, nodding his head to Yami. The bulking man woke up his brother. Riser Phoenix, for your crimes and atrocious behavior in the name of the Phoenix clan and daring to drag our family down with your horrible actions, I hereby strip you of your title, name, peerage and blood. From this day forward, you will now have your magic erased, your bloodline forgotten, and be casted into the realm of humans to live your life out there. You will no longer have the backing of our family or those around you, and your peerage will remain with our parents until they become high class themselves. You can't do that. You don't have, he choked and felt something pushed against his chest. Looking down he saw his father holding a orb in his hand and tears running down his face. Fa. I'm sorry Riser, I warned you this would happen, and yet you ignored it. I'm afraid you just have to learn from this. He then pulled the orb away, and Riser fell to the ground, trying he reached for his magical core, but couldn't feel it, his wings would not come out of his back, and he couldn't feel anything about him. This is a treasure of the clans that allows us to disown children or members and avoid them becoming a danger to us down the road. He then turned, Riser, you are no longer one of us, let alone a devil. I shall leave a little money for you, but after that you are on your own. Naruto looked down and frowned. I truly pity you. I know when I learned of my powers I thought I was the shit. I thought among normal devils that I would have power that no one can reach, especially when I started learning about the true flames of a phoenix. Sadly, I was blinded by this arrogance, and it cost me this. He motioned to his current form, so have to rework my way back to have myself turned normal. Naruto sighed. For what is worth, your peerage will be well cared for, and I promise they will rise above the normal rabble that comes in the underworld, self-proclaimed elites. Naruto looked at his peerage and saw his sister terrified about what happened. Whistling, he saw a woman emerge from the shadows. She had blonde hair and 2 pigtails, wearing a orang and black sage's outfit, blue eyes with faint whiskers on her face, and a tan complexion. Yo boss, what you need me for? Naruto deadpanned at her while the other people in the room sweat-dropped at how casual she was with him. She looked at them and saw Grayfia glaring at her, which led to her sticking her tongue out and pulling her eyelid down. Naruto, female, yes she is in this, and there is a backstory for her. I need you to take in my brother's former peerage as your own, that includes my sister, understand? The girl looked at the group of women and then back at her king. You sure? The majority look pretty weak. This broke the hearts of most of the girls present. While Ravel and Ubelina knew that she was telling the truth, while the others hated it, the facts were there and they were heartbreaking. Yes, and now it is your duty as their king to train them up and make sure they can all become high-class devils. Sure thing, boss. Turning her head she smiled. Welcome to the Uzumaki peerage. You should know that I'm going to make sure things are different with me, so be prepared to be tortured tomorrow. One of the girls asked, you mean train, right? Nope, I mean torture. You're going to be crying blood by the time I'm done with you. The group gulped at the thought before Naruto went over and rubbed the top of Naruto's head. By the way, the others are coming back soon, so they should be here in the next day. Great, Naruto turned to them and said, you should know that most of my peerage members are coming back tomorrow, so you can meet the strongest peerage in the underworld. Naruto shot Surzuch a grin. After all, they never slack off on training or honing their skills. Surzuch frowned at the dig but ignored it. Now then, goodbye Riser. Naruto waved his hand, and after the burst of flames that would be the last anyone would see the teen known as Riser, rumors would spread about what happened to, but nothing concrete, as it was something that was brought upon himself for his actions and behavior. Now then, Naruto smiled, who is hungry? I'm Skip. It was night time at the manor and Naruto was looking out on his balcony. He enjoyed the feeling of peace coming from this place, and the feeling of the flowers that released beautiful aroma, making him feel at peace. Dad in his seat was super comfortable with a glass of wine in his hand. The person or chair he was sitting on was a silver-haired teen. She had blue eyes, slightly pale skin, and about E-cup breasts and a fine ass to go with it. One strand of her hair covered a part of her face, hiding it from view. This person was smiling down at her miniature king and just enjoying the privacy they had together since coming back from her previous mission. This is Valen Lucifer, Volley to others, Femme, Volley. She was also a pawn of Naruto's that he recruited a few years ago, so well strong on his team. She was the newest of the bunch in the recent years. She was also the wielder of the white dragon as Naruto called it, and one of his many lovers. Naruto met her when she was a young child and had lost her family in a cataclysm. She had hated the world for what it had done to her, but he came to her side and saved her life and offered her a place among his own. At first she resented him, learning that she was a half-breed of their kind, and the reason her father was not there is because of her grandfather. She hated the devils and only wanted to use the gear to get strong enough to beat down everybody that gets in her way, but in time it changed. As she matured she saw the care and love of the group that became her new family and soon joined the Now though, she was just enjoying the peace and quiet with him, and the fact they have privacy at this time was shocking, given it was always either his kids, one of his wives, or his many other members that were crowding around him. So the Red Dragon Emperor, what is he like? Naruto looked at her. Weak, honestly you would be ashamed to see who he is, she frowned. Surely he has some form of strength of his own. Naruto shook his head. Afraid not, he gave up his arm to the dragon in order to gain the power needed to reach his balance breaker. She snorted, even she was not that dumb to do something so rash. How disappointing, I guess he'll have to settle with sparring with Samui Nai. Naruto laughed a bit. Yes, it would seem that among the dragon gears you two are by far the strongest and most driven. Sadly Vitra, or at least a part of him, is nothing but another horny weak womanizer. He acts as if he is superior to the Red Emperor, but he is not. I would say on paper, they are about the same level. How sad. She rubbed the top of his head. Well, I guess we best address the person in the shadows now. Indeed, turning their heads they saw Seraphil walk out of the shadows with tears running down her face. Naruto-kun. He smiled softly and stepped out of Vala's lap. It's been a long time, my magical girl. She smiled and hugged him, happy to finally hold the man that she loves with all her heart in her arms once more. Thanks for watching.